Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Jess. I met Jess through the podcast recovery community. We were guests on similar shows, and we just connected. She is an awesome person. She has 24 years of sobriety. She is someone that talks about her story about getting sober really young. I mean, she was 20 years old when she got sober. She is a professional recovery coach. She has a coaching program called My Sober Sunrise, and she's doing some really cool moves and making some waves in the recovery movement, and I'm here for it. You guys are going to absolutely love her story tonight. Let's get into it. Welcome, Jess, to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you're here. So I met you through the online podcast recovery community. We have been on very similar shows. We were just talking about that before we jumped on. We were on the Willpower Show, the same one, and Sober Motivation. Love Brad so much.
Yeah, he's wonderful. I do volunteer hosting for some of his groups in his Sober Motivation online group, so it's fun.
Yeah. He has an amazing community. He's really built that to something special. And he's such a cool, down-to-earth guy. And so is Will. I love all of them.
Yeah, they totally are. It's great. I started working with Brad actually in Sober Buddies, doing hosting there for about a year. And then he's switched over to Sober Motivation and doing his own community. And it's been awesome.
Yeah. He's super wholesome dad. Yes. So you are coming in, we talked before we jumped on that you're coming in from Vancouver, Washington, which is close to Portland, Oregon, right? Yes. Yeah. Very different from where I am.
Uh-huh.
And is it hot though? It's burning hot here in Georgia.
It's hot for us. So it's going to be mid-90s, which is super hot for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you near the water?
We're not far. So okay. We're border, Portland and Vancouver border each other by a river. So we're right on the river, and then we're about an hour from the ocean. But one thing we don't have is humidity. So
that's nice. We have all of that here.
Yes, you do.
So we're going to start our episode out with a quote like we do each time. And the quote I have for your episode is from William James. Are you familiar with him at all?
I am not, no.
Okay. So the quote goes, "Your hopes, dreams, and aspirations are legitimate. They are trying to take you airborne, above the clouds, above the storms, if you will only let them." What does that quote mean to you?
I think that means to not second guess yourself, and that your hopes, dreams, and aspirations are not in vain. They're actually something attainable. I think sometimes we think about them and we think, oh yeah, well, it's just a dream or a hope or, something that maybe will happen one day. But I think if you let them, I think also means to me putting in the work. Because I think a lot of times we have hopes and dreams, but there's a lot of work that goes in before we see that to fruition. So for me, it makes me think okay, just put in the work and follow what your hopes and dreams and aspirations are. And eventually you will get there if you get out of your own way. I think so many times we get in our own way when we are trying to, for example, starting a new business or anything like that, it's hard. There's not an end point really. And so, but whatever it may be, I think for me, at least that's what I think of when I hear that quote.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I loved what you said. That was so good, so spot on. I agree with you. So I learned about William James when I was, I think, 17 years old. I was a freshman in college. I was young for my grade, and I was in my philosophy 101 class, and everything was going over my head, right? I'm like, what are they even talking about? I'm so confused. But this philosopher, I really tracked with what he had to say, and I clung to him through that whole class because I feel like when he speaks and the work that he's done, it's about personal freedom and having agency over your life, having that self-efficacy, and ultimately to correlate it back to recovery. I think one of the most beautiful gifts we get back is hope in recovery. And I have on the side of me a tattoo. It's actually a Taylor Swift lyric, but it's for the hope of it all. And hope is something that's interesting. It's individualistic for each person, but I feel like in my experience, hope is something I have to continually work on. I have to continually put effort into making the hope and the dreams and the aspirations. You can't just sit back and hit cruise control on that. It's exactly what you were talking about, putting the work in.
Yeah, you have to put the work in. I mean, in anything in life, right? I think nothing's handed to us, or most of us, at least on a silver platter. We have to go out and put in the work. Anybody that you see that's been truly successful has probably spent 2, 3 decades, or at least a decade grinding that we don't see behind the scenes, working on themselves, working on whatever their passion project is or whatever that they love to do. And I just think we don't see a lot of that. And so a lot of times it looks like someone just kind of became famous or did really well out of nowhere, but usually they've put a lot of time and effort behind it and taking that responsibility for yourself to do that, to not just have these hopes and wishes and dreams and just sit there and go, oh, well, I hope it happens. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And I feel like the quote encompassed all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I can't wait to hear your story. Before we jumped on, you had mentioned that you're 24 years sober. Is that right?
I am. Yeah. This December will be 25.
Whoa, big milestone.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to hear your story. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Okay. So I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and had both parents were married, high school sweethearts, and a brother that was about 5.5 years older than me. From the outside, like we appeared like that Norman Rockwell photo, like perfect family. But my father was very emotionally absent. My mom tried to cover for all of the things that he lacked. And so she was busy trying to raise 2 kids. She was a nurse and she had stayed home to raise us. And my father did well. He provided for us and middle class family, but he drank every night. I know the term is kind of outdated now, but the idea of a functioning alcoholic, what we know that to be, was very much my father. He went to work, took care of his responsibilities on that end, but every night he would come home and have his drink of choice, maybe 2 or 3 of them. And I'm not talking about a shot, on ice, like ice and a lot of liquor. Never once did I see him intoxicated that I thought he was, at least. But both my parents came from the East Coast, and it was really customary, at least how they grew up, was 5 o'clock was drink hour. So that's kind of how it carried in. So in my family, that was very normal. My dad would come home from work. My parents would sit down and have a drink. Mom would cook. It was just what they did. But I was that child that's too sensitive. So I was labeled as like too sensitive all the time, or maybe more needy than he knew what to do with, wanting his attention. And that was really a point of contention, I think, for myself growing up, looking back, like always wanting that affection and attention from him and not getting it because he was not capable. And so life goes on. My brother ends up going to college, and we're far enough apart that by the time I hit middle school, he was already college. So I felt kind of like an only child because he was gone. And I started, the first time I believe that I drank, I was probably 11 or 12. So young, very young. Got it out of my parents' cabinet, the pantry. They had it up above because they had everybody's favorite drink for when they came to visit. That was another thing. It's like, make sure grandma has her drinks and grandpa has his and whatever everybody wants. And I remember trying it, and I was with a couple friends, and we had this great idea that if we took the vodka, which was for my grandfather, so it wasn't something that my dad drank. We had this great idea that if we took it and we somehow drank too much, although it was like one of those Costco gallon size ones, that we could fill it up with water and nobody would know. And so we did that. And I believe it was, my parents obviously weren't home, but we were 12 at the time, and we had a pretty close-knit community. This friend lived 4 houses down, so it wasn't like a big deal for them to maybe go to the grocery store for an hour and have us be at the house. And I remember drinking it, and everybody was like, this is so disgusting. And I agreed, but it calmed my brain. And that was like my first kind of experience with alcohol, where I just thought, oh, the chatter stopped. And I don't like the taste, but I like the feeling. And that was my first experimentation with it. I would say through middle school, it was like a little bit here and there, but not a big deal. And in high school, it was really hard transitioning for me. Our middle school had split. So about a third went to one high school and 2/3 went to the other. Most of my friends went to the other one. So it was a really difficult transitioning time for myself. And I felt like I didn't really fit in. I was kind of one of those people that was friends with everybody, but with nobody at the same time. Like at school, sure, I knew everybody. I was friends with people, but I didn't get asked to hang out all the time. And I had a core group of friends, but they were at the other school. And looking back, I really feel like I would have probably dropped out had it not been not an option in my family to do so. So I was pretty miserable my freshman year and started drinking a little bit here and there. And then I'd say it really kicked into gear my sophomore year. I had met someone that had previously gone to my high school, and he was my high school sweetheart. We dated for 5 years, but he was very abusive. And within all of that came more drinking, hanging out with, he had older brothers, older crowd of people that were either dropped out already of high school or maybe they were older, 20s something. And we'd go hang out. And so I kind of had this double life for a while where I did really well in high school. And when I was there, I got good grades. I was friends with everybody, like I said. And then there was this other life I lived where I would go hang out with people that weren't in school and drink and have access to all of that basically whenever I wanted. And it was initially just a fun partying thing. Like that was, Friday, it was to look forward to on a Friday night or something, or maybe a Saturday, but it wasn't, I would say, getting in the way at that point. And fast forward, and it just became more and more and more. My senior year, we would skip class, go start drinking in the mornings, drink all day. And I kind of had this badge of honor that I could outdrink the boys, the men all the time. And that I never blacked out really. I could drink a ton. My tolerance was huge from day one, which was really weird. Like from day one, I could just drink. And I could drink most of the guys under the table, and I could still walk a straight line. It was pretty scary. But I got a badge of honor for that. That was like, oh, she's crazy. Look at, she can drink all this stuff, and got rewarded and kind of felt like I'd found my place when I felt very lost previously. So that continued on, and I graduated high school. I was going off to college. So I did. I went to the University of Oregon, and I was still in the relationship that was it didn't start off abusive. Most of them don't, but physically abusive. It was like 3-4 years into it. So I was still in that relationship that had gone haywire, court cases, restraining orders, all of these things. And so I didn't want to go to college, but once again, in my house, that was not an option. So I just went to the nearest college that I knew of. I got there. I was still entangled in this abusive relationship. I was still drinking a lot, and it was just not the place for me to be. I had become physically ill with something else I didn't know at the time. So all of that kind of came to a peak, and I ended up dropping out and moving in with my abusive boyfriend at the time. That was very short-lived, and then started working because I just wasn't ready to go back to school. I wasn't in the headspace. I was working full-time. I was leasing apartments, and at night, the drinking had become a nightly thing. So it was every night, and I would get up and then I'd go to work the next morning, slept a couple hours. And when you're 20, I guess you can do that. I mean, I would die now even trying to be sober and sleep 2 hours and go to work. But then, I could do that. And one of the mornings I woke up after a night of drinking. I don't believe it was any more or less than any other times. And I was shaking profusely. I was sweating and I was shaking. And I think only one time I'd ever gotten sick from drinking. I mean, so this was really weird to me. And I knew enough to know it wasn't good. I had an aunt who was an alcoholic and an uncle as well. So I knew that having the shakes is not a good sign. But I asked one of, my so-called friends at the time, where the house that we would always go party at, what do I do? I have to be at work and I'm shaking and I can't stop shaking. I can't call in. And he's like, just drink and it'll go away. So I did, and it went away. And I got really scared because I knew what that meant, given my history and my family. And I did go to work. And then I remember thinking, okay, I can't do this. If I continue this road, I will be dead before I'm 30. There's no doubt. But it was hard to untangle from it all because I was still in this abusive relationship. I was trying to get out of that relationship. All my friends, this is what we did. So it would mean leaving all of my friends at 20 years old when everybody's partying. I mean, this was not like that's what you did. And so it's like, I didn't have any sober friends. And mind you, this is very early 2000s, most late 90s. So all I knew as far as getting help was AA. And back then in my head, right or wrong, was the big biker men, where that's who goes to AA. And I had not gotten in trouble with the law, I don't know why. I got pulled over before when I had been drinking. There had been several incidences. I don't know how I didn't end up in jail, and thank God I didn't hurt somebody or myself. But there were several kind of what I call like those whispers along the line, like telling me, you better knock it off. Your time's going to run out. And then it just kept knocking louder and louder. And I didn't know how to still fit in and yet stop drinking. I couldn't figure that out. And I was also, I think, numbing the pain of the abusive relationship and all of those things. So I kind of tried to hang out with another group. I did the whole thing that we talked about of moderation, telling myself I only have one or two drinks at this party. Well, I couldn't do it myself. So then I'd try and get a friend to do it for me. Like, hey, make sure I don't have more than this or whatever. As we all know, that eventually fails. So I had left the abusive relationship finally. And about a month later, well, I had gone back to college at my local college because I had decided that I didn't want to do leasing the rest of my life. And, I actually wanted to go this time. So I did that. And I saw a guy that I thought was really cute in my class. And about a month later, we met, and I was like rip roaring drunk when I met him. And I remember him taking me outside in his back porch or whatever. And he's like, you really shouldn't be drinking that much and coming over to like a guy's house that you don't really know. Like, he's like schooling me on the things I already know. And of course, when we drink, we don't make smart decisions most of the time. Anyways, that person turns out he's now my husband, and we've been together 25 years. It was at that point that I said to him, I need to not drink. I can't drink. He said, okay. And he was about 25 at the time, and he and his roommate said, no problem. And they took like all their liquor out of their apartment. He didn't drink around me. He made it really easy to leave all my other friends behind because he just took up space. He spent time with me and genuinely cared. I'd never met anybody like that before. Still, though, I mean, he was young and in college, and so he had his life. Of course, I'm not with him all the time. And I remember thinking to myself on a Friday or Saturday night when I'm living with my parents still, I would rather be home living with my parents, bored every night of my life than go drink. Like, this is a decision that I've made when we talk about, taking responsibility for our lives, right? And the decisions that we made. And I knew that this decision was going to leave me lonely, very lonely, and lonely can be a triggering thing for drinking. But I was not someone who ever drank by themselves. Like, I drank with everyone, and I did it. I think looking back now, I mean, there was multiple reasons, but I think mostly it was, I was pretty anxious growing up. So it helped with my anxiety. It helped me stop overthinking everything. And it made my brain quiet itself, so I could just enjoy myself and with people and still do everything. I mean, I was learned from the best, I was functioning. All of the people in my sphere and my family that had struggled with alcohol use disorder were all very functioning. I mean, very functioning. So that was kind of the end of my journey with it. I had gotten almost a good decade in by that time. And I think it was one other time I tried. I remember specifically one other time, probably 10 years into sobriety. I mean, it is a long time. My family was getting together for the holidays, and my brother had some type of cordial drinking glasses with, I don't know, it was some type of liqueur and meant to drink really slow, just like the dessert liqueur things. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll have one. And I didn't even pay attention to the fact that I took it like a shot. And everybody else is still drinking theirs. And they've only taken a sip or two. And I was like, see, this is why you can't drink. Because you don't have a problem not drinking. You have a problem not stopping. Like, I cannot stop when I start. That's my problem. So like, I only have to say no to that first drink. But if I say yes to that first drink, I don't have an off switch. It just doesn't happen. And so that was pretty much the end of my drinking career. But I never thought of myself as sober. I just didn't drink. It was what it was. And so I go on, I'm still with, dating my now husband, but then boyfriend, and, doing life, and graduated college, and yeah, just living life and working. And anyhow, my dad kept drinking like he always had. And when I was 27, just turned 27, he got diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer. The ironic part is he had quit drinking the year prior. He had started riding his bike to work. He had lost a bunch of weight. He was on the outside, super healthy, probably the healthiest I've ever seen him. For the first time in my life, he showed up at my door with a birthday present, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but my mom was always the one doing all those things. So for him to make the effort himself, like he came with a bouquet of, I remember pink roses and a little advent calendar because my birthday's in December. He was turning a page, I felt like. He was learning to maybe show his emotions more, or as many of us know who drink, there's not a lot of room for anything when you're drinking all the time. There just isn't. There's no energy given to anybody else or anything else. So it's a very selfish disease. So I felt like he was kind of turning the corner, but then he got that diagnosis. And my family didn't really talk a lot about the important things, especially my dad. Something you glazed over things. You didn't really talk about stuff. And he lived and died much in the same way, where he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want it to be a reality. And he kind of just took it, which was weird because a lot of people fight for their lives. He didn't. I think looking back, we as his family members fought more than he did. I mean, maybe he just knew it was not going to do him any good. I don't know. But he lived about 3 months from his diagnosis, and I took care of him till his last breath. And that was very difficult. We had a really difficult relationship, so it just kind of complicated it more. And I think the biggest lesson there is like, you don't have to be knocked down, drag out drunk for years on end to get something like liver cancer from drinking alcohol. I mean, he was a daily drinker, steady drinker, never saw him drunk, but he maybe had a tolerance like me. I look back now and I was like, there's plenty of times I was drunk and people had no idea. So that happens, and I'm 27. And then that was in 2000. Yeah. So it's quite a while ago. And went on, married my husband, had 2 kids, twins that are now 10, boy and girl. And, was just kind of living life. And I was scrolling one night on Instagram, I think, and there was a application to apply to be in a book to talk about addictions and whether you were someone who's came from addiction or you had family members. And it was like 11 at night. And I thought, oh, yeah, I'll apply for it. Talk about my dad. It never occurred to me about myself. And I got it. So I was in a book called The Addiction Diaries, and it's people telling different stories about addiction. And mine was very focused on my father's addiction and his death and our relationship. And that was in September of 2020. And that was the first time I think I'd ever talked out loud about any of it. If we went places and people offered me a drink, I'd say no. And if they pressured me, I'd say, no, my dad died from drinking. And that usually stopped people from pushing me any further. And I was like, oh, no, I just make a choice not to. But there's a bigger story behind that. And even in that book, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I'll talk about him. And I didn't really know where to go from there. And it was a very vulnerable space for me because, like I said, I hadn't really talked about it before. And from there, I decided, like, okay, well, I really want to give back to the sober community, but I don't know how I would fit in. It was one of those things. And one of my good friends that's very much in the sober community I said, well, I don't know what I have to offer. And she said, you have long-term sobriety to offer. What are you talking about? And that was the first time I had ever heard anybody even put that term with me together before. So I thought about it for a while. And in between that time, I had lost my dad's sister to cirrhosis from drinking. My dad was only 60, and I think she was maybe 62. I mean, pretty young. And then my uncle on my mom's side, my mom's brother, also died from binge drinking episode as well. So I also lost 2 friends of mine as well. So it was just like, it just kept reoccurring, and it was in my face. And I just thought, I have to do something. I have to do something. This is crazy. It's wiping our family out. We have a small enough family as it is, and now it's just taken everybody. So I came across this certification for a certified professional recovery coach, and I hemmed and hawed for a while. And finally, I just was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I did, and I got certified. And in July of 2023, I opened my own business called My Sober Sunrise, and I do one-on-one coaching with clients, anywhere from people will come meet with me because they want to quit and we make a plan, to those that have maybe a year or 2 under their belt and now they're really looking to kind of dig deeper into how did I get here? Because I think the biggest thing, and I say this all the time, is that I believe the easiest thing is to put down the alcohol. The hardest thing is to learn how to live sober and live life being fulfilled, not white knuckling it through. Anybody, we can do that. We know how to do that. But to actually like live a life that is joyful, that is meaningful to you, that you don't have to run away from. And part of that is learning how do you deal with different emotions, right? Because a lot of the drinking, I feel, is from emotions. We have a thought and then a feeling about that thought and then our action, right? And it's slowing that process down of like, okay, my thought is I'm stressed out. My feeling is I want to drink. Well, but I don't have to drink. Maybe I need to maybe I need to just feel that feeling. And so I'm not going to act upon the drinking. I mean, there's really great stages in which to help yourself slow down before picking up the bottle, because a lot of that is a knee-jerk reaction for many people, especially with addiction. You just go straight there. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling mad. Whatever the feeling is, I go to the bottle, and kind of slowing that down. So I work with a lot of people, and it seems that it's kind of turned itself to be usually around a year sober. I get a lot of people coming to me who are wanting to do more in depth. So they've gotten good at putting the bottle down and not drinking. It's been a year. They've done really well, but now they're feeling kind of lost. Maybe they're bored. Many of them have never been sober a day in their life as an adult. They're like, I don't even know how to do this. Nobody's taught me how to do life sober. And so that's kind of the crux of where I work with my clients. And I'm almost done with getting my somatic trauma recovery coaching certification. So kind of my intersection of working with people with trauma and addiction. The idea behind it is that many people who have addiction have trauma. We all have trauma, but that has fed or fueled their addiction. And so it is working through that on a body-based systemic approach to it, right? Trauma doesn't live in our head, it's in our body. So working through that, learning how to be with feelings, giving them neutral power so they're not good or bad, and just really working on how do we calm our nervous system? How do we, learn to enjoy life and ride the waves. 50% of life is great and 50% just downright sucks. That's just it. It's a bottom line. And I know for myself, I was sold this false bill of goods that, at least from my father, that you should be happy all the time. You should be happy all the time. And that's the one emotion you can have is happy. And everything else you just have to stuff away. And looking back, that's what I was doing is I was chasing that happy because I wasn't happy. And I was chasing that happy over and over. I chased it into an abusive relationship because it made me feel happy in the beginning. I chased it with the alcohol. I was always chasing that happy. And the reality is that's not reality. And a lot of happiness is what we create, is what we think between our head, between our ears. That's happiness. It's our perspective, a mind shift change. And for me, that's just been a crucial thing and keeping me sober. I think losing so many people, that's not an option for me. Even now, and I'll still get cravings every once in a while. It's in a blue moon, but I tell people I don't think it ever goes away. It's a chronic disease, but you manage it. Less of my time spent on there. Thinking about that, life isn't easy, but I think a lot of people are also sold a bill of goods that it should be, especially with social media nowadays and people are doing the highlight reels. I get a lot of clients saying, well, they've been sober and they look so happy, like they're living their life to the fullest. Well, yeah, that's what they're putting on there. They're not putting on there the days that they're barely hanging on or that they're struggling to get through the day sober and things like that. And so I'm just super passionate about trying to break the cycle, especially within families, because I think one at a time, that's the only way we're going to do it. And really bring about light to the fact that this is a serious epidemic in our society that doesn't get enough attention. And just because it's legal doesn't mean it's not a killer.
Wow. I mean, your story is amazing. I felt for you in so many parts of your story. The part of your story that got me was when you were a 20-year-old in college. And I just pictured myself in your shoes. And there is no way I could have gotten sober at that age. I mean, how you described your relationship with your boyfriend who was abusive, the strength that you had to get through that. I think a lot of that too was your amazing husband. He sounds like an amazing person to have the perspective that he had at that age. Yeah. And he kind of was your savior in a way, but yeah, I mean, that part of the story was really, really powerful. And to be a young person in sobriety, I can't even imagine, especially when I'm close to your age, nobody was sober, in the early 2000s. Where were they at? I don't know. I guess we learned about AA and high school in our drug class, but we have so many options now, which is great, but back then there was nothing. But I wanted to ask you a few questions about your story. So, you had mentioned that first year. Did you ever do a program? Did you ever do any type of 12-step or anything, or you just got through it?
I did it by myself. I hid it from my family. So my family didn't know that I was struggling. I literally did it by myself. My now husband was there, some of it. I tell people this a lot when I work with them, that sometimes you have to go into your own cocoon for a while before you can spread your wings out and fly. And that's what I did. So I think as a protective mechanism, without even being aware of it, I slept a lot. I went into a cocoon. I just transformed. It was like I just had to be by myself. I didn't know what else to do. All I knew is that I couldn't go drink. That was it. That was the only thing I knew. And other than that, it was like go to class, come home. That's it. You're just going to bypass everything. And yeah, I spent many, many a lonely nights while everybody else is kind of living up their partying life. But I had been there and done that, for so long, I think already, that I was just over it. And it definitely obviously helped to get away from that relationship that I was in, but I also, that was on my own. Nobody knew I was still seeing him when I left him, and that was a very difficult situation as well at best. And I'm not really sure how I did it, to be honest. Something deep in me knew that there was two tracks in life that I could go on, and I had to make a choice. And that wasn't an option. That's not what I wanted ultimately.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, we have to get our own self sober. Like all of these programs and everything, the work that we do is awesome, but ultimately it's us that has to do it. And kind of to tie it back into that quote that we started the episode with, that agency over your life, like you found your agency when you got sober. I wanted to ask you about being a mom. I'm also a twin mom. We talked about this before. Yeah, I have boy-girl twins that just turned 10. When's yours birthday? Your twins' birthday?
In May. They just turned 10.
Okay. Yeah. Mine are July 6th. So, you got the opportunity, because I have a lot of people on the show who have a lot of guilt and shame about drinking as a parent. You got to be sober your kid's whole life. So do you talk to them at all about your relationship with alcohol before?
Absolutely. I'm a big proponent of education and age appropriate, of course. So they know why their grandpa, they never got to meet them. They know what happened to their great aunt and great uncle. They know these things. And it was interesting because I thought I had been doing a really good job of like telling them about it. And it's hard because my husband is a normie. It still baffles my mind till this day. Like he'll get a 6-pack of beer, which was never my thing. So it doesn't tempt me. And it's been that many years, but he'll get a 6-pack of beer and it'll last him like, I don't know, a month or more. Like it's crazy to me. Even now, my alcoholic brain goes crazy when he like leaves a half of a beer empty, even though I know, I'm like, oh my God, he's wasting that. And then I was like, why am I thinking that? It's just, that's where my brain goes. And so I have to be careful because I don't want to villainize people that drink because their dad drinks occasionally. So I make it really clear to them that, hey, in mom's family, we have a problem with addiction. Here's what addiction is. This is what it looks like. This is what's happened. This is what alcohol can do to you. I had a grandmother die of emphysema from smoking. So this is what smoking can do to you. Some people are like dad in that I just don't think he has an addictive bone in his body. And basically let them know that, educate them on what is in their familial history so that they know, and we've talked about this, there have been a lot of studies that show that the longer you can keep kids from trying these things, the better chances you have of them not getting addicted. And so for me, they'll tell me now, of course, they're 10. They don't have the peer pressure and all of those things. Oh, I don't ever want to do it because I don't want to find out if I'm addicted or not. And that we've talked about how some people aren't able to quit. They don't get to see tomorrow. And it's very real to them because they've experienced that through myself. And so, of course, at the moment they say, I'm never going to drink or use drugs, or I don't want to do any of that stuff because I don't want to have to then be addicted to it. I hope that's the case. But then just the other day, my son says something about, you used to drink. So they were very shocked that I used to drink. So they wanted to know, about that. And of course, like I said, I keep it age appropriate, but I think they know what I do. They know I'm a recovery coach. They know that I help people. I guess they just thought I never had a problem, but maybe that's because they never had seen it. A lot of times I'll get parents that are just distraught that they think they've ruined their kids. They've their kids have endured too much, seen too much, whatever. And to me, talking about it is key and paramount, because when you get sober and you have children, you're showing them your resiliency. You're showing them that you can take control of your life and having agency and making this decision. And really, it's a life skill that we don't teach kids that we need to be teaching them, which is life isn't going to be perfect. Mom's not perfect. Dad's not perfect. We make mistakes. That's where apologies come in, and I think it's a great tool rather than feeling guilt is a great educational tool to see how mom or dad was able to go through a difficult time, acknowledge that it affected the children, that it affected everyone, and come out on the other end. That's just a life skill to have to learn. So I think, and trauma in general occurs mostly not because of what's done to you, but what's not done for you or what's not said to you. So a lot of times I'll tell parents it's about not talking about it, right? Not apologizing when you've been wrong, not admitting that you're human. It's not the drinking itself that's the problem. And so, yeah, but I continue to have the conversations. We were just talking earlier today about it. They were asking something about vaping or whatever, because they heard about it. And I just think it's that open communication and also letting them know like they're not going to be judged and that anything goes as far as asking questions. And then I decide what's age appropriate. But I definitely think the conversations need to happen and happen young.
Yeah, no, that was really helpful advice in the way that you worded that. And I agree with you, and how you're handling it is great. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the work that you're doing now. So, are you a fan of, do you remember the podcast Recovery Happy Hour with Trisha? Are you familiar with her?
I not.
She is awesome. She doesn't have her podcast anymore. She drops episodes like once a year now, but I loved her podcast back in the day. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because she just did a pop-up episode about recovery coaches and about how anyone off the street can say they're a recovery coach. But really, people that are looking to quit drinking should look for certified coaches like you, because you guys have gone through the training, you have a code of ethics, you have some type of foundation to educate people, because there's so many people on Instagram, social media that are saying they're recovery coaches from life experience. And while that is great, these people really they're working with an extremely vulnerable population, and they need to have some type of governing body when they're working with them. So I wanted to ask you about your goals moving forward. So it's awesome, the stuff that you're doing. What do you have planned for the future?
So I'm glad that you said that, because I was very hesitant to be a coach, right? Because of that, anybody can. It's getting stricter and harder, but for most part can hang up, outside the door that they're a coach and run a business. And so I was really hesitant by doing anything that had to do with coaching. So yes, I am certified. I had taken the courses. I had to pass things. I have a governing body. So the International Coaching Federation oversees us. We have ethics and guidelines. I think it's so crucial, because you have to know as a coach when you're in over your head. You have to know when you need to refer out. You need to know the differences between what a therapist, a licensed therapist role is, and your role, right? So I think that's really a crucial thing. And especially, like you said, you're dealing with a vulnerable population. Like, for example, I had someone come to me and they were looking for a day. They hadn't quit yet and they wanted a day to quit. And after talking to them for a while, we decided that it was best that they go to a detox center to quit. And they did that and then came back and met with me after that. So I was going to be going to nursing school before I got pregnant, and I got pregnant and that didn't happen. So I did a lot of like the nursing prereqs, and my mom was a nurse. So I think even though I can't give any sort of advice as far as medical stuff, I just at least have some of the knowledge enough to know that there's certain things are not my forte. I am not going to tell you to quit drinking unsupervised when you've been having 3 bottles of wine at night. That's not safe. So I'm really glad that more places are getting certified. So currently I am really wanting to bring together and marry, like I said, the idea of the trauma, recovery, and addiction. I'm currently getting it's called a somatic trauma recovery coach certification and a positive psychology practitioner. I'm taking them actually through the UK, but they are a master's equivalent program that's recognized here in the States. So once again, governing body. This has actually been a harder thing than I had thought, because based on my previous coaching, I was like, oh yeah, this is not a big deal. No, it's a lot, but I'm really enjoying it. So I'm looking at marrying those two more, seeing how I can be of deeper help. I am not against, you can recover any way you want, and I'm not against rehabs or anything like that. What I am against is that what happens after really matters the most. if you would have taken me for 30 days and put me in rehab, of course I wouldn't drink. It's not there. And a lot of these places are, I could be on a beach in California. I'm not saying it's easy, but that's not real life, and then you take somebody after 30 days and pop them back into their life without really learning and unraveling how they got there. So what I am looking forward to and what I'm doing now is helping people like, how do we stay sober? But also joy is an antidote to sobriety, which people don't know. It's actually scientifically proven. So how do we bring joy into our life? Maybe you don't even know what the heck you like as an adult because maybe you've never been sober. Finishing those certifications and practitioner license up so that I have that. And then I don't know if you're familiar with Mobilize Recovery and Ryan Hampton. So I was in the book with him, and that's how I got to meet him. So they're actually coming to Clark College here in Vancouver, Washington on their tour. So I am going to be working with them just to be out in the community. I do a lot, mostly online, and I am looking at writing my own book, but that's kind of been on the back burner, but a lot more in coaching and just really working on one-on-ones, and then trying to get back to some more, I guess you could say, like in the community that surrounds me, working the grounds here as well. But mostly one-on-one coaching. It's what I love to do. And I love seeing the progress that people make and that they think that I've done for them, but they've done for themselves. I mean, that's a thing with coaching. It's very different, right? Different than counseling in that we do mostly listening and very little talking and helping people come up with their own answers. Because I have a fundamental belief that we're all capable of our own healing, but sometimes we need somebody else to put the mirror up to us so that we can see clearly. But that's kind of a fundamental thing. And I also believe it's a holistic approach when it comes to sobriety. It's not one thing. It's getting exercise. It's eating well. It's all those things we hear about, but they really are what works long-term for people.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with everything that you're saying. And I love the work that you're doing now, the movements that you're making in the recovery world, and for sharing your story tonight. I mean, it's a beautiful story. If you're a young person listening to this podcast, you're such a good example of how you can get sober at any age, even 20 years old, and all of your friends still drink. I love
before
that
it's even legal, by the way. Can we just say, I was like, oh, this is sad.
Well, when you were telling your story, it's interesting. A lot of people don't have their first drink until college. You had already had 10 years experience.
I would say to young people is like, reach out to me as well, because I've been there. So the Mobilize Recovery this year is doing a college campus surge, which is where I'm really passionate too, because you're right, college and drinking kind of go hand in hand for most people. So reaching out to young people as well. And like, you're not too young to get a recovery coach. You're not too young to work with someone to help you. I've worked with some younger people, and it's really rewarding as well. And I've worked with people that have been drinking for 40 years and quit, and so I'd say, both of those things are really rewarding. And yeah, you don't have to wait. And how many people do I run across that said, oh my gosh, I wish I was your age when I quit. I've wasted 40 years of my life. So I always tell people, don't do that. If you know better, do better. And then I volunteer time with Sober Motivation, like I said in the beginning, with Brad McLeod's. And I love that. I love the group stuff too. The hosting has been incredible. And I don't think I would ever give that up. I feel like I get more from the community than they give. And it's the one thing I never had getting sober. And even all these years later, it was like 21, 22 years sober. It's been so healing to have a community. I had no idea at the time. It's been really cool.
That's awesome. I love it so much. We have made it to the lightning round of our episode. Okay. So I asked the same 5 questions to each guest. The first question is, you're given 3 options and you have to choose one. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
Skydive.
Okay. Awesome. Have you done any of the 3?
No, I'm terrified of heights and I hate planes. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going for the big guns.
Okay, I love it. Number 2, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
Boy, that's so hard. I love so much music. I think right now, probably Winning Streak by Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll. Oh my gosh. I saw him in concert last fall, and he is a baddie. I mean, the boy can belt it. He's sober as well. And just like raw, I just love him. That album was so good, by the way.
Yes, it's on repeat at my house many times.
I love the song Grace on that album.
Yes. Yes.
Number 3, what is your favorite Disney movie?
My Little Mermaid.
So good. She was the most beautiful princess. Number 4, what is something you're obsessed with?
Let's see. Probably my family, my kids.
Yeah. That's a great answer. Twin moms unite. Last question, number 5. What does freedom mean to you?
Let's see. Freedom to me is a state of mind. So I feel freedom is having autonomy, being able to choose, and not choosing out of fear, but out of true choice of what you want to do, and not letting those negative thoughts or fears get in your way, and really guiding your life the way that you want it to go. I feel like that is the ultimate freedom.
Yeah, that brings it all back to that quote we started with about
Yeah.
having agency over your life. I love
Yeah.
it so much. Where can people find you if they're interested in your recovery program or your social media? Where can they find you?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at My Sober Sunrise. You can also find me at Sober Sunrise. And you can always book like a 30-minute free one-on-one with me, and we can see if we're a fit. You can ask me any questions you want about, what recovery looks like. If I'm not a fit, I'm happy to refer out. And then you can also find me if you want to join the Sober Motivation group and do some community groups. That's a great place to start as well. We have a really strong foundation there, and I do host once a week there. But yeah, any of those things. And honestly, like the easiest, most simple way is to just send me a message in Instagram and we can go from there.
I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing
Thank
your
you.
story. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, bye.
Bye.